안녕하세요. 여러분의 한국어 선생님 고빌입니다. Today I wanted to introduce 15 Korean podcasts and listening resources for learning Korean. And there are a ton of great resources out there. So to pick only 15, we need some rules. So here are the requirements I set for this list. First, each resource must be currently active. So I only chose resources that have uploaded an episode within the past 90 days since filming this video. And next, I only picked resources that are tailored to Korean learners. Specifically, they must speak clearly. Their content must be targeted at Korean learners and not just at other native speakers. And the content must have Korean subtitles and or downloadable scripts so you can follow along. So I didn't choose any general podcasts in Korea or news or sports shows or anything that's made for native speakers. Finally, all of these resources must be free and available on YouTube. Now, some resources might charge to download the scripts, but if so, then the resource must also come with built-in Korean subtitles. And from these strict requirements, I've handpicked 15 resources that I think are especially useful to Korean learners. So here's my list, and these aren't in any particular order, so feel free to jump around using the timestamps below. First up, we have Narae Korean Podcast, which is a newer podcast from less than a year ago. And what struck me right away is the audio quality. Now, if you're doing a podcast, good audio quality is a default requirement, but hers is just excellent, and it makes it even easier to follow along with what she's saying. Besides that, her podcasts are narrated stories and each are focused on a single topic. She also has some episodes that are recorded as like regular videos, speaking without a script and talking with a guest. And all of her videos come with subtitles and free transcripts. So I give my very first recommendation today to Narae Korean Podcast. Next up, we have Didi's Korean Culture Podcast. Now, Didi has quite a large following, and if you clicked on this video, you probably already subscribed to her. In fact, I've known about this channel since it was brand new, so I'm happy to be able to finally give them a shout out. Now, she has two types of podcasts on her channel. One type is podcasts that are with a prepared script with a voiceover where she speaks about various topics. And the second type that she has is like a vlog where she speaks directly to the camera and tells a story in clear Korean, but without reading from a script. And I especially like these because they feel more just like you're watching regular content in Korean, and it doesn't really feel like you're just studying Korean, except that you are. Now, most of her videos talk about Korean culture, but she also has several videos that are about learning Korean or just about learning languages in general. All of her videos also come with subtitles and free transcripts, which is great. And besides podcasts, she also does live streaming on her channel for additional practice. So I give her one of my recommendations today. Go check out Didi's Korean Culture Podcast. Next up, we have 한국어는아일린. This is an intermediate to advanced level podcast series. In fact, their simplest lessons are probably for at least a high beginner level, and this is unique because you often don't find podcast channels that are specifically for more advanced learners. Now, she makes podcast topics about a variety of everyday things like recent events that happened or maybe activities that she did, and they kind of feel like vlogs, but in podcast format. And she talks about a lot of things that are just personal to her. Also, what's really cool is that she makes some of her podcasts using casual speech. And this is something that I've never seen before, but I think it's great. These casual speech videos also give you a chance to hear just a different speech level, which you're also going to encounter with your Korean friends and in real life, especially if you visit Korea. All of her videos also come with subtitles and free transcripts. And besides podcasts, she also uploads some grammar lesson videos to her channel from time to time, which are for intermediate level learners. So I'd also definitely recommend checking out 한국어는아일린. Next up is a channel that I've made videos with many times before. They're one of my favorite channels for learning Korean just in general, and that's 한국어 한 조각, a piece of Korean. They have both a beginner podcast series and an intermediate series. And while their episodes are also available on Spotify and I think also on their website or somewhere else, I personally recommend just watching them on YouTube since you can read the subtitles right on the screen. What I really like is that they always make sure to include plenty of explanations for everything that you're learning about. They'll highlight useful words and expressions and then teach them along the way. So it's not only a podcast for Korean learners, but it's also kind of like you get Korean lessons while you're listening. So you probably want to take notes while watching their videos. Now, all of their videos do come with subtitles, but there are no transcripts. Besides podcasts, though, they're also a regular teaching channel with grammar lessons and videos about culture, common expressions, and everything like that. So I'm really happy to give 한국어 한 조각, a piece of Korean, one of my recommendations here. Next, we have Crystal Kim Korean Diary. This is another unique podcast channel because it's the only channel that I know where they do podcasts with their own mother and their real life friends. And this is such an interesting concept. It's so simple, but it's so great because you get to hear the dynamic of actual family members and friends talking together on a podcast. Now, some of her podcasts are done kind of like vlogs, so they do come with subtitles, but no matter the format, in all of her videos, she's speaking clearly and easy to understand. Again, all of her videos come with subtitles, and some of her lessons will also come with transcripts, such as her topic listening practice videos, which is just something extra that you get from this channel in addition to her podcasts. So I also recommend checking out Crystal Kim Korean Diary. Next up is KJin, and this channel has 3 main podcast series. First, there's a general podcast for beginning learners, where all of the sentences are spoken extra slowly. And this is great because often brand new learners will just kind of overlook podcasts because they're too difficult, but I think in this case it would be an exception. Second, she has a general podcast series for beginning learners and intermediate level learners, and in these videos she talks about the Korean language kind of in general, like things like politeness levels and even Korean dialects. And third, she has a podcast series where she shares Korean fairy tales for beginners. So there's really a wide variety of content for both beginning level and intermediate level learners. All of her videos come with subtitles, and there's also free transcripts, but only for her slow podcast series. So go check out KJin if this sounds like something you'd be into. Next, we have Kim Gopseo Korean Podcast. She has 2 podcast series, one that's for beginners and one that's for intermediate level learners. And in the beginner series, she just speaks more slowly. Something unique about this one is that her podcast episodes are really short. So a typical podcast on another channel might range from like 20 minutes to sometimes maybe an hour, but I'd say on average, hers are only around like 6 minutes long. Now, this can be a really good thing because if you're a beginner who wants to listen to a Korean podcast, but you don't have half an hour to sit down and take notes, or if you just want to dip your feet into podcasts for the first time, then I think this would be a perfect option to check out. All of her videos come with subtitles and also free transcripts. So I happily give one of my recommendations to Kim Gopseo Korean Podcast. Next up, we have Totoe Korean Podcast. This is a newer podcast, but it's off to a great start. All of her videos have very slow and clear speech. Now, it's not too slow, but it is slow enough to hear everything that she's saying. And her podcasts are presented like slideshows, so you'll see images together with her narration. And all of the topics that I saw so far look really interesting. She has topics like current culture issues in Korea, episodes about Korean food, a few videos about the Korean language, such as about speech levels, and even some Korean drama recommendations. All of her videos also come with subtitles, but there are no transcripts. So make sure to also check out Totoe Korean Podcast. Next up, we have ChoiSusu. ChoiSusu. She has a podcast for beginners and one for intermediate level learners. And in her podcast, she also explains the vocabulary words and grammar forms as she's using them. So you're really just getting Korean lessons together with listening practice at the same time. She also has a separate series of podcasts that are kind of filmed like vlogs and are narrated videos. Now, all of her videos do come with subtitles, and there are also paid transcripts available for some of her videos, but not for all. Besides podcasts, she also has a few videos playing Stardew Valley while speaking in Korean. And I wouldn't actually even mention this except for the fact that during these videos, she puts in word definitions and grammar explanations over the subtitles. I can't imagine how much time that must have taken her to do that, but those videos are really fun. So it's not just watching someone play a game, but it's actually a Korean lesson / podcast at the same time. So well done on that. So I also give one of my recommendations to ChoiSusu. Go check her out. Next up is Korean Eldo. This is another new channel. He hasn't made a ton of videos yet. And he makes episodes on a variety of topics. First, he has all of the standard topics, such as learning Korean or episodes on Korean culture. But he also goes into some unique topics like how to make Korean friends, which can actually be really hard to do sometimes, especially if you don't speak that much Korean yet. I also like that he explains a lot of what he's talking about during his videos, so it's not only listening practice with subtitles, but it's more like he's also teaching Korean. All of his videos also come with subtitles, and there are even free transcripts available for the podcast videos. Besides podcasting, he also has some listening practice videos. They're kind of like podcasts, but much more scripted. But these are also useful if you're looking for some additional practice. So I'm happy to give a recommendation to Korean Eldo. Next up, we have 몰입한국어, Immersion in Korean. This channel has several different types of content. First, they have traditional podcasts, which are just called Korean podcasts, but there are also episodes about short stories, as well as general listening practice videos, and all of these episodes come together with subtitles and free transcripts. They also have a series of mini podcasts, which are only a few minutes long. So again, these mini episodes would be useful for beginners who just want to try out listening to podcasts. Now, their entire channel is focused on listening practice too, hence the name Immersion in Korean. So if you listen to all their podcast episodes and still want more, there will be plenty of other content to still use for listening. And again, all of these come with subtitles. So that's why I give a recommendation to 몰입한국어, Immersion in Korean. Next, we have All Things Korean podcast. This podcast is different than all of the other ones I've mentioned here so far because this one covers the widest range of topics. In fact, I can't even give you examples of the topics that they cover because it's kind of just everything. Now, this one feels more like just a regular podcast in Korean. So kind of like any podcast you might hear when you turn on the radio in Korea, except that it's designed for Korean learners. So overall, everything is spoken a bit more simply, a bit more clearly, and they don't assume that the listener already knows everything that a native speaker would know. But besides that, it really does just feel like a regular podcast show in Korean. Now, all of their videos come with subtitles as well as free transcripts. There are lots of videos here where he just interviews guests, so you get to hear a lot of different styles of speaking. It's just overall a very unique and useful channel. So because of this, I give a recommendation to All Things Korean podcast. Next, we have TAYONI. And if there's one word that I can use to describe this channel, it's relaxing, because all of her videos are spoken slowly, but not too slowly and very clearly. She also puts a full paragraph of the script up on the screen each time as she reads it. So if you're just sitting down and you have the video open and you don't have the script printed or anything else, you can just easily follow along with what she's saying. So I think that this would actually be a podcast that you could use as is for shadowing without doing any extra effort. And besides podcasts, she also occasionally posts vlogs and even some vocabulary lessons, as well as some videos about Hanja, which is really cool. Now, all of her videos do come with subtitles, and all of her podcast episodes also come with free transcripts. So I'll also give one of my recommendations to TAYONI. Next up is Study Korean with Seoul. Her channel has two main types of videos. First, she uploads a lot of listening practice videos where she speaks really slowly and clearly. Essentially, she reads a story using simple Korean and you follow along. While she's reading, she also displays some of the words on the screen to focus on. So it's like reading practice plus a Korean lesson. But next, she also has videos where she speaks directly to the camera about a variety of topics. And she has videos about Korean culture, including Korean dialects, a video about Gen Z slang words, and videos where she speaks about just learning Korean in general, such as like sentence patterns and grammar forms. All of her videos also come with subtitles, but there are no transcripts. And another unique thing about this channel is that you can actually disable and enable the subtitles since they're not baked into the video. And this is great for those of you who prefer to study without Korean or English subtitles on the screen. So I'll give one of my recommendations to Study Korean with Seoul. And last but not least, we have inspiring Korean podcast Gachi. This is another relatively new channel. In fact, it's only a few months old as of filming today, but what makes her podcast unique is that as she says specific words, she'll also display those on the screen separately and teach them. And this makes it easy to follow along even if your vocabulary isn't quite up to that level yet. Most of the topics she discusses are related to Korean culture. So she has videos about MBTI tests, which are really popular in Korea, as well as trends going on in Korea or Korean songs and movies, as well as videos about things like the job market and things that are just all kind of personal to her life, presented like a podcast. Now, all of her videos do come with subtitles, but there are no transcripts. But just like the previous channel I recommended, this one you can also turn on and off the subtitles. Since her channel is so new though, there are only like a dozen or so videos as of right now, but I really hope she'll keep going. So I give my final recommendation of this video to inspiring Korean podcast, Gachi. And that's my list. While I did my best to research for this video, I might have missed someone's favorite resource. I apologize, but please let me know in the comments if there's any that I missed. Thank you to my Patreon supporters out there and to my channel members. You are literally keeping the lights on in here by supporting me to be able to even make videos like this one. And if you would also like to help support my channel, check out the description box below. You'll find links to my Patreon page as well as how to become a channel member. Thanks for watching, and remember to like this video and subscribe for more Korean learning content, and I'll see you again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐. 안녕하세요. 여러분의 한국어 선생님 고빌입니다.